everybody. Welcome to our podcast. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Randy Seidel and the whole sales community. 35,000 people strong, and a lot of you are on this webinar right now. And I am absolutely thrilled to have a friend, a great athlete, father, author, entrepreneur, and a whole bunch of other things. Chris Pronger. Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Hey,
thanks for the intro too.
Not a problem. I think I might have missed a few things. It's probably good that I missed.
Yes, we'll get into it.
Hey, so congratulations on getting the book out.
Thank you.
And I said this to Chris a couple of minutes ago, but I want to say it again. Basically, I have shelves lined with books that people that I know have written. And a lot of them are just accolades about a career and, just things that you say, boy, I wish I could be that guy, but I'm not sure how I could be that guy. And when I read Chris's book, Earned, I found out it wasn't necessarily about the what, although it mentions the what. It's much more about the why and how people can pick up some of these great traits and some of the methodologies and some of the frameworks that Chris mentions in the book. So I would encourage you all to read it. But Chris, I want to ask you, so why? Why did you write it?
I think for me, as I started building out my speaking platform 2.5 years ago, when I quit drinking, I had a moment of clarity and, was looking for some purpose and structure. And as a former athlete, that's kind of what we revolve around. And, I think for me, I was looking to make an impact, try to figure out where I could make the most impact and how I could make the most impact. And as I started down this path in public speaking, it really became clear as I began building up my speeches, just the life lessons that I'd been able to learn over the course of, 48, 49 years at that point. And, from youth hockey all the way to my pro career and then life after. And, what I was able to accomplish and then, those around that were able to part of the ride and how it had affected them in a positive light and sometimes in a negative light. And, I kind of peel back the onion layer a little bit and, get a little vulnerable on some things in the book that, most of us fail a fair amount. And, the mistakes that we made are only make us stronger and allow us to kind of evolve and grow. And I think a big part of the book is about adversity and leaning into it and pushing ourselves. And, at each step, I try to challenge the reader. And as I'm betting on myself at each and every twist and turn throughout the course of my career, and then the moments when I don't is when I struggle the most. And so, just trying to walk people through different key points in my career. And hopefully they're able to utilize those to level up themselves and be difference makers in their lives, both professionally and personally.
No, that's great. I mean, it's like I said, it's really unique motivation to be able to share this. But I think you're downplaying the career part of it a little bit too. Great. I mean, I kind of met you at the end, near the end in 2009 when you came to Philadelphia, and we were fortunate to be able to have you in Philadelphia for a few great years. But a lot of guys probably don't know some of the things you have accomplished. I know, modest is not a word that normally comes to mind when I think about you, but I figure out that. So, just fantastic career. The book will explain that. It starts with, talks about some really hard choices, juniors versus high school, and different choices that Chris made. But along the way, I mean, top 100 players that ever played the game, Stanley Cup Champion, two gold medals, just a fantastic Olympic NHL career that spanned a number of different years and spanned a number of different teams. So, Chris, why don't we start out? I mean, so you're blending, the words standards, adversity, ownership, et cetera, with what you learned. I thought Timo just did a beautiful job on the forward of your book, and he's a great guy to begin with. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, just kind of how you want to start this out?
Yeah. So, after I wrote the book, we were trying to figure out who would be the best to write the forward, if I wanted a forward, and who would be the best person to write the forward. And, as we kicked around a few names, our paths crossed quite often, as I was always tasked with stopping Teemu. And, we butted heads a lot. There was a lot of passion involved, a lot of excitement and intensity. And, I may have taken a few pounds of flesh off him over the years. And
over the years. That.
Yeah. And, he got me back once in the Olympics in 2002. And, he hit me from behind and I split my forehead. I had like 10 stitches and I was bleeding all over the place, losing my marbles. And, I think it was 2 minutes left in the semifinal game. We finished, we win the game. and all the guys are over here in the corner celebrating, and I beeline over to him, and I got blood running down my face, and I'm like, I am going to murder you the next time we play. And I think I had already figured out, we played him, and a couple weeks later, and his eyes kind of bulge out of his head, forgetting where he was and what may or may not happen in a couple weeks. So that was fun. And then, obviously played him over the next number of years and played him in the conference finals when I was in Edmonton. He was in Anaheim and then got traded to Anaheim. And, right from the outset, he kind of tells his experience of learning about the trade. And then, from that first day meeting in the locker room and setting all our teammates' minds at ease as I walked over and gave him a big hug and, patted him on the back and said, all right, now we're teammates. Let's go win a cup. And, we never looked back from there.
Fantastic. I have some other people I think could have written a good forward to you too. Justin Bieber called, said he'd be interested in doing it. A lot of times when I mention your name, people do mention the face wash of Justin in that game, but all good stuff. He
probably needed it, Frank. He needed a little back massage with my stick, loosen him up.
But while we're on people, before we get into the framework and stuff like that, you mentioned another individual who I had the utmost respect. I still have the utmost respect, and we lost him way too soon in Brad McCrimmon. So the beast, whether it was the Wheat Kings or whether it was other experiences that I had to be able to meet Brad, and was fortunate enough to meet Brad. Sounds like he was a great mentor. What did you learn from him?
He was awesome. He had, you look at his career path, came in as a rookie with Ray Bork in Boston. Then he comes to Philly and he's with Mark Howe. Then he goes to Calgary and he's with Gary Suter. Then he goes to Detroit and he's mentoring Nick Lidstrom. And then they bring him into Hartford to mentor me. And so you look at his body of work, it's pretty solid, pretty sound body of work, and some great players that he was able to bring along over the course of his career. But he meant a great deal to me. Just, I'm a young 18-year-old coming in the league, green-eyed and trying to figure it all out. Probably a little naive as to what the expectations were of me in that first year. And, just having the opportunity to, we had the fine dining club, and I'm sure just what a 36-year-old wants to do is drag an 18-year-old along with him. We had the fine dining club every night on the road. We'd go for dinner and he'd be talking shop and talking every, different plays and how to beat a trap and how to do all these different things and talk about life. We were roommates, defense partners. We sat near one another in the locker room. He meant a great deal to me those first couple of years. And, while I may not have always been listening, subconsciously it was getting in there. And, I think he never stopped trying to teach and never stopped trying to, provide information and with the hope that at some point the sponge is going to soak it in and it'll permeate into my brains and, in totality. But, getting a chance to have him as my partner in my first game, and then 1,000 games later, he's playing again. He's coaching in Detroit and against me for my 1,000th game. It was pretty special and coming full circle as I was now a mentor like he was. And so to be able to share that moment with him was really special.
Fantastic. So you met him in Hartford, and then
Yes.
continued all the way.
1993.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
August. I don't know the exact date, but August 1993.
You know, it's funny, when I was reading your book, I had no idea. I was looking at it, I'm like, why wouldn't they trade Shanahan for? No, I'm only kidding. But talk a little bit about expectations when it began, when you're pro, because Hartford was not a kind place to play sometimes, and you had a lot of greats up there, including Gordy and some other people.
Yeah, it was it was interesting. I don't know what bill of goods the owner was sold on how I played, or all the rest of that. I think they may have had expectations, maybe because of my stature, that they thought I was going to be Mario Lemieux. But I think they thought maybe I was going to change the course of the franchise like that. And that's not the type of player I am. And so I think the expectations may have been a little outsized for my rookie year. And I was very inconsistent. I had some good games where I looked great, and other games where I was not so great. And, I think that's the learning curve in the NHL, is the highs and the lows. And, I think the pressure started to mount that I wasn't living up to my potential very early on. Expectations probably were a little higher than maybe I thought they should have been. And I didn't handle it very well. And, it just, it's kind of snowballed into the next year. We got locked out, and then I wasn't in shape coming back into the season. And, it's just a disaster that second year. I got a DUI after my first year. There was a lot of things that kind of transpired that maybe I wasn't sitting in the good graces of the new owner who came in, new general manager, and Paul Holmgren became the head coach. And
he's still around.
He's still around. That's right. And I think it really affected me on the ice. I was listening to the criticism and listening to everything, maybe not taking the nuggets that I needed and blocking out the rest of the noise. And then, the trade you're talking about for Brendan Shanahan to St. Louis, I didn't really, we'd only played them one time in the 2 years because of the lockout. We didn't play the West. And I'd only been to St. Louis once, which was early on in my career. I think we went there games 6 or 7. And so I didn't really know much about St. Louis. And I had always heard Brett Hull and the St. Louis Blues, and didn't realize that, Brendan Shanahan had become that big a star and was kind of supplanting Hully as the face of the franchise and the go-to guy. And so when the trade happened, I didn't really think it was that big a deal, relatively speaking. And came to find out real quick that you just got traded for, and was quickly put in my place. And the Boo Birds again came out and descended upon me. And I think that was probably the hardest point in my career. Just the weight of the world coming down on me, the trade, the expectations, the pressure, the fans, my teammates, ownership, management. It just felt like everything around me was caving in, and I needed to find something real quick to change the course and path of my career.
Well, you obviously did. So congrats. Hey, I wanted to remind the audience, you have the ability to ask questions online. So let's keep them coming. If they're good questions,
if they're good, you're going to hear them.
If they're bad questions, we'll ignore them. All right. So let's go back a little bit in terms of the mindset. So you mentioned Hartford, you mentioned big moments starting in St. Louis and stuff like that. It comes down to a phrase that you used in the book, and I really, really took it to heart. Standards plus adversity plus ownership equals success. Can you talk about those words and what those words mean to you?
Yeah, I think, right after all this stuff was caving in, I went and saw a sports psychologist, and he started talking to me about standards and asking me what my standards were. And I kind of looked at him dumbfounded. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just play hockey. Yeah. It's, this is not rocket science. And, he started kind of breaking it down and asking me questions of, when you feel bad, how do you play? And I'm like, well, I don't play very good. And when you feel good, how do you play? I play pretty good. So he's like, you're very emotion based in how you play and how you perform, and how do you get past that? And so we start talking about standards and what they mean and what they are and how they're non-negotiables and all the rest of that. And so we set out to set 3 simple standards, and mine were I need to be the hardest worker in the room. Like, I have talent, I have skill. What's going to separate me and what's going to get me to my ceiling of my potential? And then I needed to fuel myself accordingly and take my health and fitness seriously. And then the most important one was I had a victimhood mentality. I was blaming everybody else but myself for my lot in life and how I was playing. You know, the fans were booing me. It's their fault. It's my teammate's fault. He pinched and it was a 3-on-1. And, you know, on and on and on. I was making up all these different excuses, except making the biggest one, which was challenging myself and holding myself accountable for my play. And once I got rid of the victimhood mentality, created a stronger mindset, and had the wherewithal and the ability to just push myself, hold myself accountable, take ownership for my career, then I started to see some success on the ice. And so that's when I came up with the standards plus adversity. You're going to face adversity throughout the course of a career, of your life. You know, how you lean into it, how you challenge yourself. I look at adversity as a gift, very much that in the fact that any growth that we have, personal, professional, is always from adversity. If we never challenge ourselves or push ourselves to this next level, you know, we're not going to know how great we can be. We're not going to really challenge ourselves or push ourselves to get to that next level. And then obviously ownership and just accepting it, taking it on, and really, you know, assessing where we are and then how we can get better, and taking ownership in how dedicated we are. What are we willing to sacrifice? How hard are we willing to work? And all, you know, how much failure are we willing to push through? Our ability to not quit. And so as I started kind of looking at all these 3 facets, I'm like, that's what success is boiled around is, you know, what are your standards? You know, how much adversity you're willing to face and push through and grow from, and then taking ownership and holding yourself accountable to all the rest of that. And that, to me, that's how you become successful.
Yeah, no, I think it's true whether you're in the tech industry or whether you're playing in the NHL. I think it's really, really true. I was fascinated. I just want to get into this one more time, if we could. Why you chose the word standards? Because you know, basically, a lot of people talk about adversity. They talk about ownership. Obviously, they talk about success. I haven't heard the word standards used like that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's my standards are my non-negotiables, and it's, you know, every single day how we show up are our standards, and my non-negotiables are I want to be the hardest worker in the room. I want to have a strong mindset. I want to have the ability to lean into adversity and, you know, all the rest of that. So as I create these standards, these are day-to-day things that I live by every single day, even now when, you know, post-playing days, it just becomes a part of who you are. Once you find success and once you're able to see what they really mean and how they, you know, are able to allow you to find that next level, you want that more. The more success you have, the more you want it. And for me, once I found success and got to the top of the mountain, I'm like, okay, I didn't want to take my foot off the gas pedal. It was, I just found the template. Now it's time to put the gas on and throw another log in the fire and try to, you know, start cranking on it more. And once you've had a little taste of success, you want more and more and more. And so with me, it really started with standards and then being able to hold myself accountable to those standards.
No, totally agree. You know, it's interesting because as I'm reading the book, basically I'm translating some of these things into my life. And I think, you know, obviously those 4 words translate very well. The thing that I also learned, I think you said it very, very well, is when you define standards in a book, I believe you said it's really about what you do when nobody is watching. So it's kind of owning it yourself.
Absolutely. And that's taking ownership of whatever it is you're doing, and your standards don't, when people are watching, it's easy to, you know, show up and put in the work. It's harder when you don't feel good, nobody's watching, all the rest of that, you know, nobody cares at that point. But you know who does care? It's you. You're going to know. You're going to know you didn't show up. You're going to know you didn't put in the work. You're going to know you didn't push yourself to the utmost you can handle. I was listening to Michael Phelps talk, and 12 years straight, 365 days a year, he was in the pool. Christmas, New Year's, whatever, birthdays, didn't matter.
Right.
Every single day he was in the pool, pushing himself against who? Himself. He didn't have a score of his, opponent. It was him. I wanted to be better every day, and just pushing himself against his own time. And that's a standard. He held himself to this standard, and we talk about leadership. Like, I held myself to this standard, and I held everybody else to this standard, and I pushed them every single day to achieve their standard, knowing that mine was up here and theirs was here, and I'm just going to keep pushing until we get to the promised land.
So, it's a great subject. So you've been captain of teams, etc. Did you tell the other players what your standards were?
No. I think just actions speak louder than words, and they're going to be able to see it every single day. If I'm the hardest worker in the room, if I'm looked at as the best player or one of the best players on the team, and I'm the hardest worker in the room, you hope that just through osmosis, they pick that up and they start joining you in the gym, and they start seeing, the fruits of your labor, and see how hard you work, and then the type of performance you have, and what your expectations are. And so you're able to continue to, push and prod guys to try to find that next level.
So it's not a brag. It's basically an example.
Yeah.
Basically, you're hoping that they notice the example.
You're setting the example, and they're able to see how you perform. They're able to see the level that you're at, and then they see how hard you work, and they're like, oh, I get it.
So I'm going to connect the dots one more time between your book and the industry that most of the people work in. So the tech industry is pretty volatile right now. It's volatile in good ways and volatile in bad ways. There's layoffs, but there's startups creating new opportunities, new technology like AI, et cetera. You talk about the trade tree in your book. And that's kind of what happens to us in this industry, except we don't go from contract to another contract, and we don't have agents. But it happens. How do you, whether it's Hartford, whether it's St. Louis, Edmonton, the Oilers, or the Flyers, talk to me about when you get that news, how you react to it, but more importantly, how you make the most of it.
Yeah, I think you have to look at, you're looking at each trade as an opportunity. A new opportunity to challenge yourself, a new opportunity to forge your path and showcase who you are, what you're all about, how you play the game. And with each one, I would use it as motivation to have this little chip on my shoulder to show them what they're missing.
Yeah.
And to also prove to the new guys what they're getting. And so with each trade, you just utilize that as a tool. And for me, each time I got traded, it was, I looked at it as they wanted me. Not that the team wanted to get rid of me, but the team wanted me. Yeah. And so you're doing that. And then every time you play against that other team, you want to show them why they miss you and utilize that as a tool. And you don't take it in a bad light. I took it personally in the sense that I use it as motivation. I didn't take it personally. I mean, it's a business decision. It's the business of sports. And, we understand that as athletes that, we've got a short window of time to perform at the highest level, and you have to take advantage of that. And some people, you fit into some people's plans, and some people you don't. And so you have to utilize that time to the best of your advantage.
Sure. I'm sure you had a couple of paybacks on the way too.
I may have had a few of those.
Extremely accomplished career again. So 2 gold medals, Hart, Norris. Some people understand what those words mean, but basically being the best, but whether it's a position or whether it's an overall player, describes the Hart and the Norris, and the gold medals. at the Olympics. I'll tell you a funny story you might not know about your gold medal, but I'll tell you that after we get finished. But how do you rank them in terms of accomplishments? And I know the book's not just about your hockey accomplishments, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I get asked this a lot, and for me, the most important one and the one that drove me the hardest was the Stanley Cup, and that just because that's what I grew up. When I was growing up, pros couldn't play in the Olympics, so it wasn't really a goal or a dream of mine to play in the Olympics. It was more I want to win a Stanley Cup, and every day when we're outside playing road hockey or in my basement or up at the outdoor rink or playing at the local arena. It was always Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals in overtime, and you're scoring the winning goal and all the rest of that. And then when you get an opportunity to play in it and you lose, which I did in Edmonton in Game 7, it's crushing and gut-wrenching, and it's a terrible feeling. But from that failure comes an understanding and the ability to be more resilient, be a little more hardened to what it's going to take if you're able to get back there again. And so when I got back there in Anaheim the next year, knew exactly what I needed to do and how I needed to play and, the type of leadership I needed to provide along with our other leaders in our locker room and our captain, Scott Niedermayer. And so as that kind of all played out, being able to lift and hoist that Stanley Cup and live out a dream is the top of my heap, with the Olympic gold medals being a close second. Once we were able to have that opportunity, it's anytime you have a chance to play for your country and win a gold medal and fulfill that goal is really special. And obviously everybody in Canada's watching, and it's I think in 2010 I think over half the country was watching at that time. And so, just everything stops and we're all going to pay attention to what's going on in the hockey stratosphere. But and then obviously the Hart and Norris, the year I won those was a special year. And it, the first time since Bobby Orr had won, and nobody's done it since. And so, that particular year, I probably didn't appreciate what I was able to accomplish because we lost in the first round that year, and I was still pretty pissed off that we had a good team and we kind of let an opportunity slip by, and was in the middle of negotiating a contract and trying to figure all that out, and there was a lot of balls in the air, a lot of things going on. But as I look back, that was a really special moment in my career, and something that is a nice little bookend with the Stanley Cup, the gold medals in the middle, and then the Norris and the Hart on the end.
Fantastic. I saw your gold medal when you weren't around. So there I was. I was in Vancouver. I was watching a game. We were in a box next to Wayne Gretzky, and I went to a hotel for a drink, and I recognized your lovely wife, Lauren. I introduced myself to her. She had your gold medal around her neck while she was saying you were taking a nap in your room. And gold medal that night. So pretty cool stuff. Hey, all good. So let's transfer now. So now you're in Philadelphia. Basically, you experienced the injury. Your career is winding down. A great career, professional hockey career is winding down. But you reinvent yourself. You reinvent yourself as an entrepreneur with the elite travel business, with the whiskey business that you and Sean were in together, and now you're on a whole different bend, which I love, which is basically motivating others with the book and public speaking. Talk to us a little bit about the afterworld.
Yeah, I always thought I wanted to, get into management and be a GM or president of a team, what have you, post playing days, and started down that path after I got healthy. I spent a couple years working on my eye. I had a vestibular concussion that affected my eye. And so I had no depth perception. So I had to work at it for about 18 months really retraining my eye how to focus and kind of work in sync with my other eye. And then obviously work on my concussions and post concussion syndrome and all that stuff. And then, went and worked for the league and Department of Player Safety for 3 years and got a chance to learn the inner workings of the NHL and the business side of hockey. And then worked for Florida for 3 years as senior advisor to the GM and kind of learned hockey operations and how that all worked. And then, decided to make a change. And my wife was building a boutique luxury travel company at the time and started helping her build that out and really kind of enjoyed the process of entrepreneurship and building a business and was helping her network and do things like that and work on the business plan. And then, as you said, went down the path of trying to start a whiskey company with my brother. Maybe I got too high on my own supply. And about 2.5 years ago, I quit drinking and, that kind of shuttered and, started looking at where I could make the most impact and really started to kind of dig into, what happened throughout the course of my career, both before and after. And really started to see where I could make the most impact. And as I started thinking, a friend of mine is a performance coach and keynote speaker. And, he sat me aside one day. He's like, "Hey man, you'd be great at this. You look at your story. Look at all the things that you've done in your career." And I'm like, it's all right. I'm not that great a speaker, whatever. And he's like, "Yeah, but think about this." And I'm like, "Well, this guy over here, he's really good. He did, he's super successful." He's like, "Yeah, that guy talks about what you did." And so, having real world experience and being an expert on what I talk about. And, I think that really adds more context for me and really gave me the boost to like, yeah, maybe I should try this. And I wanted to my point earlier about challenging yourself and pushing yourself, believe it or not, Frank, I am an introvert. I'm very shy and quiet for the most part, but really coming out of my shell and and started to look at it. Okay, well, if I'm going to do this, what messaging do I want to present to people? Where can I make the most impact? Who can I help with what I know and what I'm a foremost expert in? And so as I began curating and creating these speeches, started really digging into various key points in my life that I thought would be beneficial to people. And as I started kind of doing that, the framework for this book kind of came into the mix and came into the fold. So it all kind of came together very organically, which is the great part. And as I started going around and doing some talks to people, I started to really see the messaging resonate. People really started to take hold of it, and it was getting great feedback and testimonials and things of that nature. And that only added to wanting to write the book to be able to have some type of playbook or a semblance of a framework that people could follow. That I utilized to kind of level up and be a difference maker and get to where I did in my career, and want other people to be able to find their success as well.
That's great, really is. I had an opportunity to go back and forth with a mutual friend of ours yesterday, Joe Koenig from WWT, and we were just kind of talking about it. It's fantastic. I mean, whether you're in your shell or you're out of your shell, you're a natural at it. So before we get to the crowd, if there's any questions coming from the audience, how do people engage you as a speaker? How do people find your book?
They can find my book on Amazon first and foremost.
Well, that's easy.
That's an easy one. Everybody's got Amazon, right? Secondly, it's at Barnes & Noble. It's at wherever you buy your books. Or third, you can go on my website, chrispronger.com. I've got a book section, which obviously has the book. There it is. And it's right there. Or they can go to the events section where I have events for book signings and various things. And then there's a speaking section where if they are interested in having me come talk to leadership team, sales team, whomever, clients, what have you, happy to have a conversation and see if I'm a fit.
Good deal. Tucker, are you still around?
Yes.
Good. That sounds like a very firm yes.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions online?
No new questions, just a few comments that popped up.
Yeah, I saw the few comments. Very positive. Thank you. Well, why don't we open it up? Chris, I know you gave us a lot of your valuable time, and we're almost at time. Why don't we give it another minute, see if anybody wants to be brave to get on
Yes.
the prongs, the question.
Open book.
I know you are. So very open. All right. All right. Well, hey, you know what? I look forward to seeing you. It's been a little while. I know we tried to get together in Philadelphia. That didn't work out when you were working with the foundation. But thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations. I mean, you've extended your career and you've extended it in the right way. And I think it's going to benefit a lot of people. So it's great to see you again. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. I think you got a question. Frank, you got a question there.
I got a question. What's my question?
Yeah.
Frank,
did you ever play hockey?
Did you ever play hockey up to what level? So, no, we couldn't afford a hockey when I was growing up. I played on a pond, but there weren't a lot of ponds in Philadelphia. But I had an opportunity to be able to coach for a few years. I had an opportunity to be able to work with USA Hockey on player development as well. So that's my hockey career.
Awesome.
All right. We got another one. Enjoyed this. It's a great deal. Standards, non-negotiable.
Thanks, Robert.
Outstanding. Kerchie, good to see you again. And Chris, with that, we'll let you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll read your book again. It was
yes.
All right. Take care, buddy.
It's always better the second time.